State Senator Joan Huffman, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's great to be here.
Just to start off, why the run for Attorney General?
Well, Ken Paxton's done a good job at certain things. He certainly, worked at combating federal overreach when we had a different president. He's been good at standing up for Texans' rights and good at suing woke corporations like Google and some of the opioid corporations and Big Pharma. And I would certainly do those things as well, but there's so much more that we can do. And I bring my experience, my 16 years as a prosecutor. I've been a twice elected criminal district court judge, been in the legislature as a Texas state senator since 2009. I bring all that experience and really just kind of beef up the law enforcement side of the AG's office. Really do everything that we can to keep Texans safe. And there's so much we can do that we have the ability to do. The law enforcement division at the AG's office has about 200 law enforcement officers. A lot of people don't know that. We need to get aggressive prosecutors in there, aggressive lawyers who are going to work really hard to go after human trafficking, which I've written most of the legislation on that, fentanyl trafficking, go after Medicaid fraud. And, we've heard a lot of that from President Trump and Doge about the fraud. Well, we need to get after it in Texas because the feds can't do it all. So there's just a lot of things that I think that we need to focus on that have not been focused on. When I look at my experience, and I look at other AGs in modern history, there has never been a former prosecutor with significant, felony trial experience, with never been a criminal district court judge who's presided over thousands of cases. Never been a state senator who was chairman of the major committees, state affairs, redistricting, jurisprudence. Been chair of finance for 2 sessions, presiding over a committee that looks at every line of the state budget. I know what's in every state agency, how it runs, and I've been doing all of this for a long time, and I'm ready to serve. The other people running just don't have that level of experience. So I'm presenting that to the voters and hoping that I know I can serve with integrity, and I hope that's what they're looking for.
Speaking of running this really contested primary right now, 4 major names in there, and a lot of them getting some major support, whether it's Chip Roy getting support from Ted Cruz. How do you stack up, and how do you cut through all the noise of this giant primary right now?
Well, I've always made it on my own. I started out as a secretary at the DA's office, working nights, going to law school, in what I used to call the bowels of the district attorney's office, at night with prisoners on the floor, talking to law enforcement. I've shown a lot of grit, and I've worked really hard. I didn't work for these guys. They've either worked for each other, came from some of the same elite law firms. They're all big talkers. And I'm just going to run on my record. I've taken almost 14,000 votes as a state senator, passed almost 500 pieces of major legislation, taken on really tough issues like pension reform, human trafficking, voter ID. I've done all these things, and I'm going to present that to the voters and run on my record.
So I think one of the more intriguing things that happened with our Attorney General office this year was that decision where the United States government sued the state of Texas over the DREAM Act, and Attorney General Paxton declined to defend that, allowing that challenge to be de facto successful. What would you see yourself doing in that situation or similar situations?
Well, I think that we would look at, a lot of folks are unhappy with the idea of illegals being in Texas and being able to, use the in-state tuition perk when they're not legally here. So I would agree with, Paxton on the way. I don't know if I would handle it the exact same way. I'd have to look at all the details. But I certainly agree with the concept that if you're here illegally, you should not benefit from taxpayer, benefits that, because it does hurt our own citizens here, because college is expensive, and many middle class individuals or anyone, it's tough to pay college tuition these days. So we've worked in the legislature to kind of control that, but it's still a difficult proposition for many young people going to college these days.
Yeah, another instance where we've seen Attorney General Paxton take a proactive role was in his attempts to try to bring those quorum breakers back to Austin. If there was a similar situation, I know the penalties have been increased, but they were increased prior and it didn't stop them this time. What would you do in that situation as Attorney General?
Well, you know, the legislature now has addressed these issues with legislation that we just passed last week, which I supported. And, you know, as the Attorney General, I'm going to enforce the law and I'm going to do it aggressively. So whatever the law is, that would be my role, to be the aggressive voice for the people of Texas.
So, you know, we had a lot of discussion during the regular session about bail reform.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about your journey through getting those bills passed and what they'll do to help prosecutors throughout the state.
Well, it has been quite a journey. We started in 2019 with the Damon Allen Act, where we started to make some inroads into the requirement that judges actually look at information before they make a determination of letting someone out on the street. You know, we've always been focused on violent offenders, keeping them locked up to protect Texans. It has been a challenge. We kept finding a roadblock in the House with some of the Democrats in the House. I did a pretty good job of getting it out of the Senate. Eventually, this session, you know, I was able to, through just working with the Democrats and all the Republicans, to get it almost unanimously out of the Senate. And now it will be up to the voters in November. And if they choose, which I'm very confident they'll do so, the judges now will have a tool to keep individuals locked up who are charged with the most serious and most violent offenders, which I think will protect Texans. I've worked very hard on this, worked with victims, prosecutor's office, law enforcement throughout the state. I have a great working relationship with all those folks, and I think we're finally there where it's going to make a difference. We have some work to do. There's always work to do, but I look forward as Attorney General to be able to enforce those laws.
And I know that was probably one of the capstones of legislation, but what are some other big pieces of legislation that you might have had a hand on, maybe you didn't, in this 89th legislature, that you would be very happy to try to defend as the Attorney General?
Well, you know, I'm always working on the human trafficking side of things, and I carry the human trafficking omnibus bill, which is actually put together by the Attorney General's Human Trafficking Task Force. A lot of people don't realize that. I've carried that legislation for years, and we've just, you know, carved away at really getting at those who traffic individuals, protecting the victims, giving them more resource. So I'm always, you know, really proud of that legislation. We also passed a bill that is going to, it's called DPRIT, which is the Dementia Prevention Research Institute of Texas, which is going to be a great program that will work with bringing innovative research and trying to cure and treatment for dementia, which affects almost every Texan has had an experience with a family member or friend who's experienced that. So I always take on really big issues and generally successful, and I work closely with the Lieutenant Governor and the members of the Senate to accomplish big tasks.
Another big issue we've seen over the last half decade, especially relating to the Attorney General's office, is promoting election integrity, making sure the Texas elections are fair and secure. How would you do that and handle that in the Attorney General's office? Well,
I will say that maybe some people don't realize this because it's been several years now, but I did pass the first voter ID act that actually held up in the courts. And that has proven to be highly successful and a real benefit as we try to secure our elections. I think that's a work in progress. Senator Hall has some great legislation this session that will try to get rid of any fraud as we go through the early voting period and try to, you know, clean that up. And so again, as an Attorney General, my job will be to make sure that the laws are being followed. If they're not, to go after bad actors and to do everything I can to make sure that, you know, that everyone's confident in the way that democracy is being handled in the state of Texas.
You know, just to wrap up here, you do have a very lengthy resume, especially among the candidates in this race. Whether it's sometime as a prosecutor in Harris County or sometime as a legislator up in Austin, what's just one moment that sticks out to you that you think, okay, this is a moment that I can take with me into this AG role and remember as something to say, I could do this?
I think when I think about my whole career, you know, what always still touches me is the contact that I've had with victims' families. And so, you know, I think of the little girl who was raped and murdered and left in an attic, and dealing with her parents, Nicole Benton, I still remember her name, it was a long time ago, and the man who did that to her has since been executed. But I always have seen myself as, you know, the voice for that family, and I want to keep doing that for Texans.
Well, State Senator Huffman, thank you so much for
Thank
joining.
you.
The last word is yours.
Well, I look forward to serving the people of Texas. I am a public servant. I've been doing this a long time. I know I'm going to have to earn their vote, but I'm going to try to show everyone that my record, my qualifications, my background, and my integrity will prepare me quite well for this position.
Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.